mode is now off. Early signs are that it might have helped, but yeah, let's take this opportunity to just attach the block to this thing. Yeah, still crap. On a good day, I have more upload than Twitch will actually allow. So Twitch only Twitch caps upload at around about 6 or 7 megabit, and I could stream on a good day. I could stream up to like 15 megabit upload, but so actually YouTube would be a good streaming platform for that because they allow high upload. But it's just internet in this country is just so bad. It really, really is. And it doesn't ever seem to recover either. You know, you would think that maybe it's kind of like a temporary slowdown or something. You know, I could see how maybe there would be congestion on internet for 15 minutes or something. You know, but how can it be that on certain days just nothing fucking works? You know, absolutely goddamn nothing. Like this upload speed is worse than on my phone. This is worse than 3G. We're now going on to 5G. My 4G phone beats this. I mean, I could try and switch to it actually, but you know, it's just it's just embarrassing. This is to the point where I should be getting a refund. You know? Nah, Chile has better. Like, you don't understand. Mongolia has better internet than Australia. Never mind Chile. Don't tell me Chile has worse internet. That's fake news. I don't believe that. So tell me, Samza, what have you played with 10th gen yet? I'm just putting 2 screws in, you know, diagonally. For a dual core, that would be plenty. I'm also using the cheap paste. The idea is just to keep the core at a reasonable temp. That's all. That's really all. All right. That is annoying me. One sec. There we go. Right. But where's my alien? Very important part of the whole story. 10th generation Intel. So 10900K, 10700K, 10600K. Let's also connect the chiller. And our hard drive. Fourteen Celsius, I think, is what the chiller is set to. Okay, let's just get rid of these stupid fan speed warnings. Hey, Keep. Unlike you, I don't have LN2 every weekend. And I have terrible internet. Hi, GT403. Apologies for the terrible stream quality. Pretty much an audio only experience today. Okay, GT it is. Right. So 5 worked last time, so let's actually just go straight to 5.1 and see if temperatures on their own help us here. So let's see what we see on a load. 50? Oof. I mean, that's still a 20-degree improvement. But the chiller hasn't really chilled down properly yet, so we'll see. I'm basically just hoping to stream long enough for the internet to get back to what it was, what it once was. Because I do have a board here. I did some exciting stuff on FM2 this week, but I wanted to show you the board, which you can't really see when the video quality is this bad. Alright, that's looking like it might pass. Which is nice. Actually, I didn't even apply VCore, did I? Oh no, it's I think it's set in bias. Yeah, Apex 12. I saw somebody say that there were only 300 Apex 12s made. Like the initial batch of Apex 12s was 300. So you can imagine how quickly that sells out. There was only one review sample in Australia. Everyone else got extremes. So basically every launch, Asus tries to give people extremes, and people are like, this is a terrible board, why don't you give me an Apex? But they're always out of Apexes, so that's 5.1G 7350K #1. Well, there was temperature headroom there. I don't know how much frequency headroom we really have here, but let's see. Yeah, and Australia only got 1. There's not 300 countries in the world, so Australia is getting kind of shafted. but there other other motherboard vendors exist, so no, all hope is not lost. Um, yeah, MSI strangely quiet this release. They always go for memory frequency world record every release and BCLK world records, but they haven't posted anything yet. Um, maybe because Aces beat them, and they just didn't want to put up a second score, second best score, or maybe they just didn't put the effort in, because when a vendor focuses so much on one thing, you would reckon that they would, you know, still be able to do that every single generation, basically. Okay, so we have a 5.2. That's nice. That's starting to get somewhere. These little Ryzen shortcuts are starting to annoy me a bit. Yeah, it comes and goes, GT. It comes and goes. Okay, 5.3 predictably is a hang, but that's fine. We can give it a little bit more volts, because I'm in that, right? If normally I stream at 6 megabits and then the video quality is just good through and through, but because I'm at that low sort of between 400 and 800 kilobits now, it's like whenever the internet gets ever so slightly better by like 100 kilobits, the video gets way better, because it's whatever the opposite of diminishing returns is. Like, it's exponentially worse when you get lower in bitrate, and the bitrate is kind of fluctuating in that area where the top range of it looks kind of almost completely okay, and the bottom of it is just a gray mess. Tweaker 42, is that the Phenom, the unlocked Phenom? Yeah, let's try 1.45, 5.3. I got a little bit further. I should probably I've been getting into soldering recently, and I should probably solder on some read points on this board. It would be interesting to see if LLC6 really is the best LLC to use for this kind of testing specifically. C2 stepping. Well, that's kind of crap. But it is a cool like collector's item for sure. I know there's one in Australia. Young Pro has one. Ooh, interesting. This is 1.475 volts now. So you put your hand on one. What does that mean? Usually that little InOS crash of Cinebench means more volts would solve it. So let's go 1.5. So you just had a look at one? You considered buying one, or what did you do? I don't want to jinx it, but it's looking kind of alright. I mean, with liquid metal under the lid, a little bit of more voltage, I could see this passing 5.4. I mean, I'm going to try it, but I very much expect to fail. What's a good ambient score? What have people done on ambient on these chips? Let's at least give 5.4 a run. Well, there we go. um, okay, let's go. Let's do a little bit of BCLK. I don't really want to go above 1.5 on the V-core. Let's have a look at the scores while that's running. Well, it's not running anymore. Okay, I'll come back to that. So Cinebench 15. Okay, the first 2 pages will probably all be LN2. At least. So someone did 5.5 on Chiller. This looks like pretty much one of the top ambient scores. I mean, not in terms of score, but in terms of frequency. So it was a 569. Well, that's not competitive because the memory and Encore are so low, but in terms of pure H2O, we have a 5320 megahertz. I'd like to see the V-core on that though. And like I say, my pace is horrible. Ooh, MOCF. So my download as well as my upload seem to be a bit handicapped at the moment. Okay. Load, please. All right. Lower V core. Okay. Well, I'm still happy. Let's do all core valids at 1.5 as well. Well, I know 5.4 applies, but okay. So 5.5 applied, but didn't seem all that stable. Let's see if we can sneak out a sneak out a valid there. Indeed, GD900, the absolute best paste in the world. One more go at the valid and then I'll throw in a different chip. Let's actually just open all this up. Right, protected. Okay, so we're on XOC mode already, I suppose. Ah, shut up. Shut up, Windows. XOC is not set. Well, that's retarded in so many different ways. Let's go pro here as well and use the 32-bit version just to eke out that extra little bit of stability. Actually, for valids, I don't really care. I can go 1.55. Let's not mix up these valids. Okay, that's 5.4. 5.5. Yeah, okay. All right. It's pretty much exactly where I expected it to be. OCAU, you're up next. Now, the only slight thing about this, it's not delidded, but considering how bad the paste is I'm putting under the lids of the delidded chips, I think that non-delidded and delidded are pretty much on an even playing field. Probably not exactly, but pretty much. While I have you here, even though the internet is still crap, here's what I've been working on. So this is the board that was used by the ASRock guys, Nick Shee, Sherv, Splade, to do 8G on FM2. It's the A88X Extreme 6 Plus, and it's got some issues where even the LN2 BIOS won't let me post with high vCore over 1.5 or so, and I haven't been successful in finding in-OS utilities to raise the vCore in OS. The other thing about it is there's a post on the forums. So typically what you want to do for 8G is you want to have some method of reducing multiplier really, really quickly. So that's either software like PS check or hardware, so a slow mode switch. And actually hardware I think is kind of preferred because you just, mouse movement can cause crashes as well and stuff. So whereas a hardware switch, just one instant you're at 8G and the next instant you're at a safe multiplier. So from back in the day, Man had a post on the Hyperbot forums on how to add a slow mode switch, which I've tested. So you just solder on something to pad here. I can link the forum post if people are interested, and then you just short it to ground. So at the moment, just to test it, I shorted it to ground on over here, but it does work. So it reduces whatever multiplier you set, which on the FM2 platform, the max multiplier is 63. I've tried a few different ambient multipliers, 38, 41, whatever. If you flip that switch, it will go down to 18x. So yeah, on Apex, on the Intel platform, you might be familiar with the slow mode switch, which goes down to 8x. Here it's 18x, pretty much the same thing. It's still half stock speed, so that's plenty. So I just need to go to an electronic supplier and get a nice little 2-position switch to solder on here. I don't know where I'm going to put it. Probably going to, as a helicopter is passing and fucking up the audio, probably going to put it, glue it on using hot glue somewhere along the top edge maybe. And the second thing that I have soldered on here is an I2C connector, and that goes into, people who aren't familiar, maybe I'll just spend a little bit of time explaining. The Elmore Labs EVC2, I think it's just $20 or something. Really reasonable international shipping as well. So John, aka Elmore, of previous Asus ROG fame, made this little PCB. It's got all kinds of connectors on there. One of them is I2C. So you just have to get ground on the right side. It's all labeled on the PCB. So you would connect it like this, and then you might not see this, but especially with the bad internet, $32 now. Okay. Of course, right now the internet is the worst it's been. So you basically, I'm considering this to be audio only now. Increased shipping. It was still cheap to Australia, so I don't know. Anyway, you just hook it into your laptop using a micro USB, and then it's got some control on there. Quite a bit of control actually. So you can control LLC, and actually big thanks to Elmore for adding support for this IR3635B or something. I don't know, this particular controller. Let me find a pic of what it looks like, as my internet goes completely crap. So I'll just paste it in the chat. Can I paste a picture in chat? I thought I could. Maybe not. But I can describe it. So you've got voltage monitoring in a graph form for 2 loops. The second loop is a minor voltage. The first loop is the 4-phase V core, which is the important one. You've got current monitoring and VRM temperature monitoring, and then you have max current override, OCP per phase override, load line calibration control, and then obviously very importantly actual voltage control, and PWM switching frequency as well, which for HE is really important actually, to have a nice high switching frequency. So yeah, the combination of these 2 mods on this board, I have a second board as well, so I can really go to town. I'm probably going to delid this 6800K because it's done exactly valid. It's done 7.89 on 3 different boards, and it can set about 7.94 but not validate on 3 different boards. And actually 1 BCLK above that is 8003 megahertz. So with maybe a little bit better pace job, with the delid, with the better voltage control, maybe I can just squeeze HE out of it. But to be honest, if I can't, then I'm just going to get another chip. So this is the board that I did 8.5 gigahertz on. The only slight concern is, again, you probably can't see this, but even though the VRM looks kind of impressive, it's I think it's not even a doubled. I might be wrong, but it's a 4-phase with just some of the components doubled. So even at idle at 1.4 volts, The VRM is up at about 80 degrees. The cooling solution is kind of puny as well, so I just have to watch that. But the good thing about the EVC2 is it has VRM temperature monitoring. So once I get to, I mean, valids are if I was running W prime now, that would be interesting, trying to get this board to pass W prime at 1.9 vcore. But up at like 2 vcore just for valids, probably even down core to like 2 cores. With a little bit of active cooling, I should be okay. So that's my 8G project. So I've already done 8G on, and I'm sort of going through all of my boards and GPUs. The other thing I want to now try on EVC2, I tried the Sabertooth AM3 board on EVC2, and it has I2C out of the box, but it doesn't seem to have vCore control for some reason. But I actually have 2 EVC2s, so what I can also do is actually hook it up to both controllers on the HD5970s. I think I have a card right here. So this is VAS'd up, so it's a bit gross, but let's see. So there's no actual header on here, but I think there's a few solder spots around the voltage controllers. So that would be an interesting 2 EVC2 projects. But yeah, for HE, I think there's only one person in the world who's done HE on all 3 platforms it's possible on. So I also kind of theorize that maybe HE is possible on 4 microarchitectures, because I've done 7.84 on Trinity as well. So this would be Richland, so 6800K. I've done almost HE on 5800K, and no one's actually done it on 5800K. So the 3 platforms that are confirmed HE capable are the old LGA 775 on the Intel side. What's that microarchitecture actually called? Just NetBurst, I think. Cedar Mill, yeah, the Cedar Mill Celerons. And on the AMD side, we have Bulldozer. So actually, technically, that's already 4 different microarchitectures, because you can do Vishera and you can do the other one. There was a refresh of AM3 Plus. So those 2 architectures, I've only got a Vishera HE, I think. And then there's 2 on the FM2 side as well. So in total, you could say that there's 5 different ways to get HE. Don't I have? Yeah, so let me switch to that. So only Ratty, French overclocker Ratty, has. So I break it down by socket here. He has AM3 Plus, LJ775, and FM2. And I only have AM3 Plus right now. And FM2 is I mean, I've gotten really close to it, right? So doing almost 7.94, not valid, but setting it. It's just a matter of time. Cedar Mill is Cedar Mill is a different ball game altogether. I don't know when I'm going to tackle that. The issue there is that a lot of the boards need hard mods and stuff, and I'm only recently starting to slowly kind of do the easy hard mods. All right, if I remember right, this chip is a little bit of a dog's breakfast. So I'm predicting 5G, maybe 5.1 at the most, maybe even only 4.9. But that's the exciting thing about ambient binning, isn't it? Let's be generous and throw a little bit of new paste on there. Anyway, it won't matter much. cooling capacity of this loop is quite adequate for a dual core. So chip number 2 out of 4, isn't it? Maybe we'll get through all of them. Maybe. So yeah, I bought the EVC2 thinking I would use it for graphics cards, but now I'm sort of realizing, thanks to Der Bauer, and you know, Der Bauer is not really a very active bencher at all. He's just a YouTuber at this point, but I have to give him credit where credit is due. The fact that he put up a recent video about him redoing 8G on AM3 Plus, and he really surprised me because he has Crosshair 5 and Crosshair 5Z, but he said actually the Asus 970A board, which was one of the last, if not the last board that they released on AM3 Plus at all, is technically a better board. It's got whatever, it's got a higher switching frequency, it's got a better VRM or whatever, and I started watching the video thinking this is completely insane, what is this guy doing? But what he did was apparent either it doesn't have Turbo V support, or the point he was also making is that, and I'm not sure about this because I've always struggled with validations, but what he was saying was that when you have like a soft crash in OS, so when you're validating, there's a few different things that can happen. You can have, well, as you're increasing the frequency, you can have a lock, so the mouse doesn't move anymore, the keyboard doesn't respond anymore, whatever. That's a reboot. You can't do anything about that. You can have a blue screen, that's a reboot, obviously. But you can also have like a soft crash where Explorer starts crashing, the mouse still moves, but maybe you can't hit the X on your CPU Z or whatever. And his theory is, and I mean, it must be right because he's not just making it up, but I have to test it myself, is that this kind of soft lock is caused by the V-core being slightly too low for the CPU to function properly. So his argument is that you can actually recover that by quickly using external means, because obviously your OS is kind of broken. So I2C, so EVC2, or maybe something like ROG Connect, using external means to tell the motherboard to give it a little bit more V-core, and then you can actually recover out of that and then quickly do a validation and then downclock again, and then, you know, you've kind of salvaged that. So really interesting stuff. I want to try that basically. Well, post, that's always a good start of these things. Where's my alien? Buried under the HD 5970. Would help to connect the ROG OC panel, wouldn't it? There we go. So yeah, so slowly kind of getting into the hard modding and stuff. I haven't even done a feedback mod yet, but I've copied volt mods from one card onto another when it was the same one. I've put voltage sensing lines onto things. So I'm slowly kind of getting a little bit more used to soldering. So the story there is I need to connect my OS as well. As my internet may finally have recovered. Famous last words, right? Let's give it a little bit more bitrate. Why is there a fan speed error? I don't... Oh, maybe I didn't save it to that profile. CPU fan speed, ignore. Okay. Looks a lot less like 1992. Yeah. You're in Australia. You know what the NBN is like. I'm supposed to have 40 megabits of upload, and of those, I can only actually send 7 to Twitch, which sounds like a very healthy ratio, doesn't it? That sounds like something that can't go wrong. Even when the internet is half as fast as it should be, I would still have 20 megabits, of which I would only need 7 to send to Twitch. That's not how it works, apparently. Sometimes I only have 1 megabit of upload. Sometimes I only have half a megabit of upload, even though it's supposed to be 40. Yeah, but it's less about ISP than it is just about our infrastructure, isn't it? The NBN is sort of like, I don't want to call it a socialist experiment because that gives socialism a bad name, but it is a socialized version of internet in a way, because all of the ISPs just what do you call it? Like, it's wholesale to the ISPs. The ISPs don't own the infrastructure. Okay, let's go 4.9. So my ISP is Optus, but I don't think it has anything to do with that, because then you have to also consider the mode of how you connect it. You know, I'm on high frequency copper, which people consider to be better than fiber to the node, but maybe slightly worse than fiber to the premises. I don't know. Yeah, I suppose. Okay, I'm on Optus. There you go. Name and shame. Okay, so yeah, this is a little bit more chill than the LN2 streams I did. I think I have a notion of, well, let's talk about EVC a bit more. I think I really want to just run through a lot of my boards and a lot of my GPUs to see what I can get out of them, because I think attaching a few I squared C lines onto a board is still easier to do, especially for mass stuff. Okay, well, that was all right. Then trying to, it's less expensive as well, because trim pots rather, are not that cheap. Okay, so 5 needs more than 1.4 vcore. So now let's go 1.45. Fiber to the curb. Okay, that's another wrinkle there. Yeah, this is. It's not thermally throttling, but it's not really running regularly either, is it? Okay, now it's fully locked up. So 5 at 1.45 was no go. Thanks for the subscription, GTX, by the way. I don't know if I've thanked you before, but I just noticed you have a sub, so every little helps. Okay, so I think I just go straight to 1.5. I can't see how that would hurt. So as predicted, we're struggling to do 5G here. Let's keep that open actually. $70, that's still acceptable. Yeah, it's really weird though, my internet. I mean, it works quite well a lot of the time. I get whatever it is, 7-8 megabytes per second download on occasion, which is very reasonable. And I have very often streamed without issues. It's just every once in a while there's that really terrible day. It's like today. As my bitrate drops again. Okay, so 5G did pass. I have a feeling that might be the end of the line. So let me grab. Let me also actually make binning notes. So this is 7350K binning. Best did 5.3 at 1.5 volts. And now we have OCAU, which is probably going to end up at 5G at 1.5 volts. Picasso. I mean, 5.1 is not outside of the realm of possibility, but yeah. I mean, it sets. That's something, I suppose. And let's also go into our notes here and go Cinebench 15 and CPU Z valid, because sometimes sometimes you just like to see more than one data point. So that was 5.5 at 1.55 volts. Hey Scoops, how are you doing? Unfortunately, I've got some internet issues today. I sometimes think that the issues with the internet are like a chipset issue or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird how it works. It's so it's so sort of localized. And it's so bad that I sometimes think that I have set up my local LAN here wrong or something, but it doesn't really make any sense, because why does it only happen every 3 weeks then? I don't know. It's a bit weird. So let's that was the end of the road for Cinebench, but let us give valids a go. So yeah, there's our 5.5 valid. Just don't want to mix them up. So 750k -1. So 1.55. Let's try 5.2. By the way, that's sort of one of the tricks involved with validation, is you go to a different tab, which I didn't do there. Let's give it one more go. So CPU Z, the main tab is actually heavier in terms of processing than any of the other tabs. So if you're really trying for 8 gigahertz or whatever, it can be worth it to just go to one of the other tabs and just hit the validation button straight away, and then determine from the file name actually what frequency you validated, rather than looking at the main tab, because that might cause it to crash in and of itself. Obviously, if I was really taking this seriously, I would be doing it in Windows XP, because actually that's the other tip. The 32-bit version is slightly less heavy as well, so that's what I did on the other chip, so we should try and do that here as well. So right now we only have a 5.2 saved, and that's totally within expectations. I mean, I don't necessarily even want these other chips to be good, because that makes it nice and easy for me. If I have 3 terrible chips and 1 good one, then I just sell the 3 and keep the 1 good one. It's much easier that way than if you bin something and you end up, with a 5.5, a 5.45, a 5.425, and you kind of have to run them all on LN2. So that's our 5.2. Now let's do the trick we spoke about. Yeah, okay. That's the end of the road for that chip. Nice and easy. Let's go with Matt. Let's torture this Matt chip a little bit. Yeah, like I said, that first chip has done, I think, 6.7 gigahertz validation without much trying on liquid nitrogen, and can't remember what scores I got on it. I think I got a 6.6 gigahertz GPU Pi 100M on it. So that's the absolute best chips do like 6.8 to just under 6.9. So, and these chips are trash. Like this is you've got to remember, this is an i3. The binning variation on these chips is completely off the wall. There are some chips that don't do 6 gigahertz on LN2. So to have one that does 6.7 basically means that out of a crowd, out of a batch of 4 of them like I have here, it's virtually impossible for another chip to also be 6.7. There were people at the time this was launched in 2017, I think. There were people buying 100 chips and still only finding you know, a couple, a handful that are anyway decent. Okay, so this is a delidded, little delidded one. So it's even got good paste under there, but it's all dried up. So I'll replace it with the bad paste in order to get consistent results here. Ah, yuck. My benching room always just has paste all over it. Okay, so it's even got a paste on the pads down here. That's not good. Yeah, and these chips still kind of fetch a pretty penny. You can get kind of 100 Australian dollars for them almost. So it'd be nice to sell 3 of them, make 300 bucks to put into something else, maybe a 4th streaming camera or something. But it's annoying. I have, at this point I have a good mic, I have 3 good cameras, I even have video lighting and stuff, and then the internet screws up and it's all for nothing. But in another way, I've also sort of accepted my fate. Not faith, fate. F-A-T-E. Okay. Oops. No, that's not good. And it's delidded. Obviously, you have to be careful about getting the IHS on sort of centered there. Alright, still plenty of paste on the water block. Well, I'm glad so many people turned out for an ambient stream. So out of these 3, I predict that there will be at least one chip that doesn't do 5 gigahertz. So we had one here that I think with a little bit of cajoling did 5, but on very high VCore. It really doesn't take much for a chip like that to be a little bit worse and not even do the 5. Okay. They need to invent, so I already have quick disconnects for the block. They need to invent quick disconnect for water blocks onto the CPU, onto the motherboard. By the way, Southbridge or chipset, as you can see, completely bare. Don't believe the fake news that you need chipset cooling. On AMD you do, on the recent stuff. Where's my little alien? Can't bin without that. Okay. Here we go again, chip number 3. Yeah, it's really tough to get a streaming schedule that is, well, it's actually impossible to get a streaming schedule that's decent for everyone. Oh, you watched the NASA launch? Yeah, I don't know how I feel about human spaceflight privatized. The robotic stuff, yes, absolutely. The more the merrier, you know. But human spaceflight, if you know, they sort of talk about it like it's the only way, but the reality of it is that NASA has been defunded for decades now. It used to be possible, and now it isn't anymore. And it's not that it's gotten more expensive. If anything, it's gotten cheaper. But you know, we've come a long way in the wrong direction since 1969, where it was actually, you know, the biggest sort of goal of JFK's government basically was to go on the moon, and now nobody gives two fucks about spaceflight, and they now consider this to be a great success. And yeah, great, the first launch from US soil in 9 years or whatever it is, but it could have been a different way, you know. It's sort of, it's a success in the context of years of failure, you know. So it's a relative thing. It's definitely a relative thing. So I mean, growing up, I was huge into manned spaceflight, following all the ISS launches on my 56k modem at home, trying to watch the live streams at the time. But I've kind of become a bit, or very disillusioned with it, because you know that the second shuttle disaster was very unnecessary. The first one was unnecessary. The second one was, in a lot of ways, even more unnecessary. So that there's a few things that follow on from that, right? So obviously, unnecessary and tragic loss of human life on 2 occasions, basically, kind of for the same reason, you know, cost cutting, not listening to the engineers, all of that. And then, of course, a hit to the reputation of human spaceflight in general because of that. So now it's sort of embedded in people's consciences, or in their sort of psyche, that human spaceflight is expensive and unnecessary, and the private sector should take care of it, or we shouldn't do it at all, or whatever. That couldn't be further from the truth, I reckon. It really, if you, I never really got this argument of, oh well, there's people starving in the world, why should we put money into launching people into space? Fact is, you know, humanity is insanely rich, and it's just inequality. Well, not, that's an oversimplification, but it is primarily due to inequality and greed and selfishness that there are still people starving on Earth, and that is completely separate to you know, whatever money people want to put into spaceflight. So I don't know. Anyway, I went off a little bit off the deep end there, but I was always a fan of human spaceflight, but I do look at the current developments very, very critically because of that, because it could have been different. There could have been a successor to the space shuttle, but they just completely fucked it. They just completely made it into this thing where it's a little bit like, I don't know, I don't want to get into politics, but successive US governments always tend to do this thing where they sort of selectively argue that they should be financially prudent, you know, just financially responsible, but then they spend trillions on military spending, you know. So that's never on the table. Why not just shave 1 or 2% off of military spending and give it to NASA? That's one of the most efficient uses of money ever. But you know, okay, so 5G, yay. There we go. At 1.4 VCore, no less. I'll get off my high horse now. Don't worry. So let's try 5.1. That's a crash, isn't it? As I'm picking thermal paste off my laptop keyboard here. Okay, let's go 1.45. I think that's one of the things too. It's so funny. I mean, it happens in every country. Lived in Germany, it happens in Germany. Lived in Ireland, it happens in Ireland. Happens in Australia too, and it definitely happens in the US, where when it's convenient to them, politicians will say, we cannot afford this thing A, B, or C. But it they do it so much more in the other direction, where they go, oh, because of national security, we need to spend 500 billion more on Hummers for the army or whatever. So no, the only really the only counterpoint I ever hear in against human space flight and exploration is it's too expensive, but it isn't. So there actually is nothing against it. We should be doing more of it. It's so inspirational. Clearly, I mean, a lot of people still remember landing on the moon. That was really inspirational stuff. That's one of the greatest achievements in the history of mankind. Yet in 2020, people say, it's all too expensive. Let's not do it. All right. Anyway. So we got 5G. So let's try 5.1 with 550 millivolts more. I should really have a little bit of I should have more actual voltage monitoring. That would be the correct way of binning these, would be to solder on some read points. Yeah, to be fair, I mean, Mars is obviously that I do get. So Mars is so much more complicated to get to than the moon, to the point where a lot of people who are in favor of human spaceflight argue that a return to the moon has to happen before Mars happens. And I kind of understand that. What I would actually like to see is all of our space stations have always been in low Earth orbit, and that's a late fail. Lower Earth orbit is it's cheap to get stuff there, but it's hard to keep stuff there. So it's so low that communicating with them is easier, getting there is easier. Building, you can just use a Soyuz craft to get there, because all you need to do is get into orbit and then you're at the space station. But what would actually be more interesting in a scientific sense and more permanent, let's say, would be something in a, I don't know what the other orbits are called. There's maybe something like a geostationary orbit, or an orbit that is actually in a fixed point between, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a point where the gravity of moon, earth, and the sun all sort of balance out, and you can actually stick a space station there and it won't move. Whereas low Earth orbit is so close to Earth that your orbit keeps on deteriorating. You keep on getting pulled back into Earth, so you have to keep on, every time a Soyuz or a space shuttle docks with the station, like one of the tasks on their list of things to do is, run your thrusters for a little while so you can get the station back to its nominal orbit, because it keeps on deteriorating. Lagrange? Is that supposed to be pronounced French? Lagrange orbit? Okay, that might be it. I'll take your word for it. Lagrange point. Okay, nice. Thanks for the info. totally forgot what that was called. So yeah, I mean, I mean, yeah, don't get me like the International Space Station was just, it ended up being I think it's still up there, but towards the end of it, it ended up being a bit of a farce because, let me first set, okay, 1.48 and 5.1. That didn't set for some reason. Let's try that again. Okay, here we go. Actually, let's keep it open. Like, say what you will about the Russians back in the day, but they knew how to sort of cheaply do stuff and do stuff well. Like Soyuz has been around since the 1960s, but it's cheap. It's, you know, it runs on kerosene instead of liquid oxygen and liquid helium. Is it? Is that what they use? I think that's what they use. Liquid hydrogen. Sorry, liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen is sort of the fancy way of getting something into orbit, but it's more expensive. That's what the Americans use, but the Russians just have like this kerosene rocket from back in the 60s. It still works. That still sent astronauts to the ISS even after the decommissioning of the space shuttle. And Mir was a little bit like that. I remember as a kid seeing Mir on TV break up in orbit, and I was just sort of, I was always thinking, oh, why are they doing this? Why is there not going to be another space station around? I think actually, to be fair, ISS and Mir overlapped. So by the time they, I could be wrong. I could be remembering this wrong, but I think by the time they decommissioned Mir, ISS had already had a few modules up in space. Maybe not manned yet, but it was already being constructed because it obviously takes a little bit of time. You send it up one module at a time. But the Russians were so good at doing things cheaply and well. And what happened, I sort of stopped following it, but what happened in the later years of ISS was they did budget cuts to the point where you had a space station that would take 1.5 people. I still remember this. It would take 1.5 people to run day to day. And they used to have a 3-man or 3-person crew. So you would have 1.5 people doing experiments, doing actual science, and 1.5 people running the space station. And I think early on they had 4 people crews or whatever. So it was 2.5 doing actual work and 1.5 just keeping the thing maintained. And at one point, I think they cut it down to 2 people. So it was just, so they were just sort of running a space station for the sake of running it because they only had a half person left doing the experiments. And then of course people look at that and go, oh, this is a waste of time and money. Yeah, of course it's if you cut budgets to the point where it's pointless, yeah, of course it's a waste of time and money. Anyway, 5.1 did pass. Oh, yeah, that's what they're planning to dock with. Yeah, but it's sort of, I just sort of stopped following it because I got disillusioned with it. Well, that's nice that they're still up there. Okay, let's try 5.2. So this chip is better than the second chip, isn't it? Yeah, that won't even run. Okay, let's quickly try that 1.5 V core and then do valids, and then we can move on to the 4th chip. But yeah, I think exploration is just, I know in the past, in humanity's history, exploration kind of had negative connotations too, you know, what happened in the Americas, what happened here in Australia, and so on. Clearly, it's not sort of always a fully sort of innocent kind of thing, but considering our solar system doesn't have intelligent life in it besides us, I suppose we could have an environmental impact on other planets in the solar system. But we're so far away from that. I think at the moment, all that can really happen is positive things. Maybe I'm a bit naive there, but that's sort of what it boils down to in my head. But I haven't been following it, guys. The only reason I even know about this launch is because it was in mainstream media. So I don't seek out I don't go on like space Reddits or something the way I go with overclocking. So let's give it just 5.2 one more go. As my internet seems a bit better, you know. I don't want to jinx it. No, no dice. Okay. Now let's go for the all core validations. Yeah, so overclocking wise, so I need to rerun this chip on LN2. I'm probably getting LN2 this upcoming Friday. My targets, I'm definitely doing the 8G. I'm doing the Ryzen 7 1700X. Another session on that. Maybe a little bit more 7G Legacy 3D. But I haven't really decided yet. Hopefully I can take some memory cold as well. So, oops, not F1. Should probably just take the F1 button out of all of my keyboards because I never need help, or at least the type of help that they're prepared to give me via F1 is just completely useless. But yeah, the inspirational part of it is a big part. I mean, I grew up wanting to become an astronaut as a kid. I just think nowadays, what kid would want to become an astronaut? You know, I suppose maybe if you watch Star Trek on TV or something, but you don't have actual real life people to look up to anymore if you want to become an astronaut. I mean, not that it's a realistic undertaking anyway. I mean, uh, what percentage of people who want to become an astronaut? Maybe 0.01% or something. Okay, so why did I close that? 5.5, and let's start off at 5.3. So yeah, the theme continues of this being a better chip than the second chip. Let's just quickly do a little bit of BCLK on it for valids, and then move on to the last chip. Yeah, well, that's part of the. I mean, I sort of did want to become an astronaut, but one of the things that stopped me from it was not that I would have gotten there. Just to make that clear, I mean, I'm just nowhere near, and I've never been anywhere near the physical conditioning that these people need. But I did, you know, as a kid, sort of naively think that I might give it a go. But the way that people become astronauts is by becoming fighter pilots, and I'm just too much of a pacifist to go into the army. I don't want to. I think it's just, I don't know. That's just not my cup of tea, you know. So there's 5.3 again. Now let's do half BCLK steps. All right, time for the last chip. I mean, not that it necessarily applies in the case of the army or the air force, but yeah, traditional. I think in general, if I can make this kind of generalization, this is probably like a controversial point to make, but I think in general, like tradition is often used to justify um, bad things, sort of, justify things that shouldn't be done anymore or are counterproductive. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of tradition, but then again, I'm sort of a hypocrite because in terms of overclocking, I am a fan of tradition. I like 32M and 3D Mark 01 and 3D Mark 03. So those things are going on 20 years old, and I'm a fan of them. Whereas there's some people who do want to sort of reform overclocking. Um, Next chip is Australian, aka Australian eBay chip number 4. Um, so yeah, I do get sort of understand that I'm kind of being a bit of a hypocrite by liking tradition when it suits me, so to say, and not liking it when I don't see any point in it. But yeah, I mean, no, I mean it's a good job, right? Like it does teach discipline. As much as I'm, like I say, I'm sort of a pacifist, but I do understand the aspects of it that are positive, in my opinion, like instilling a sense of discipline, giving some in a lot of cases giving someone a full time job who might not um, otherwise who might live in an area where otherwise there are no jobs. So, but then there's the flip side of that, which is indoctrination. Making people numb to violence and stuff. Whatever. Anyway, time to get off of this political topic. Let's go back to overclocking. So this syringe is almost done. I do have some tubs, but hopefully I can just squeeze the end out of this. Just about. Is it enough? Is it not enough? I think I may have to get a tub. Let's throw this out. Or can I maybe just rub the side of the syringe onto the chip? Whatever. I'm not trying to set any records here. This is just for binning, so that'll do. How's everyone else's benching going? This is probably one of the worst chips anyway, so it'll be a good way to finish off the stream. Finally get a chip that's so bad it can't pass 5G. Oh, I also lost my transcoding last time I restarted the stream. I just noticed, but that's okay because this as I fuck up the mount, I should probably just concentrate on this. This bitrate is so low, even people who generally select 720p or whatever should still be fine streaming this, hopefully, in theory. Okay. So, last chip for today. As I cross thread the nut. I'm sort of happy with these results though. Oh, nice, you've already got 490. So a few points about memory on Z490. Even though I don't have it myself yet, I've heard from multiple sources that the IMC on the, I don't remember the stepping code, the early, is it P and Q? Is that what we're up to? I think the P0 chips, so the engineering samples, apparently have much better IMCs than the Q. And I think Q is retail. Also, what RAM? Yeah, what RAM are you on? Are you on a 0 layout or a 2 layout? Yeah, GPU on SS is always hard. Zero zero. Interesting. All right. I've got to give this a try with just the air cooler, I think. Hopefully I didn't crush the socket. Hopefully I was paying attention enough not to. Maybe I think I over tightened, to be honest. That happens a lot on LGA sockets, on Intel sockets. Sometimes you just over tighten the block, put so much pressure on there, and then you get a 0 or 55. Yeah, funny how long DDR4 has lasted, isn't it? To the point that where we now have two different revisions of the same IC being used for different things. Okay, let's have a look here. Okay, bottom of the chip is clean. Socket is clean, and I don't see any dirt in there or anything. So now let's do it the zero mounting pressure way. I doubt this chip died just sitting around. That's ridiculous. Still 0 0. Okay, well, Next step is obviously just to throw a different chip in there, yeah, on the same setup, and see, maybe the socket has gotten slightly bent out of shape, but that makes spinning easy, right? Having one dead chip. Okay, that posts. So not great losing a chip. One of the pads does look a little bit dirty, so I'll get my contact cleaner out just in case. I mean, seems sort of unreasonable, but I may be out of contact cleaner. That's a worry. Definitely need to order some more, but I think I can just wipe it off. Those are remarkably clean pins. Okay, let's give it one more go. Nope, it's 0-0. All right, let's just quickly catch up on chat here. White Shark, am I going to take my 480 cold I have for GPU Pi? But I don't enjoy all the fiddling you have to do to get the memory to cooperate on cold. So maybe when Kingpin releases his GPU socket, well, GPU cooler, GPU heater, I might give it another go. But there's not that much points to be gotten from RX 480. One of the things that works against it is the split between RX 480 and RX 580. So if those were merged, then you could get quite a good level of points. But it's not really high up on my list. I know I have a good core, but just clocking the memory on cold is quite hard. New 38C14. Maybe I can just briefly show you my kit. I didn't have any A0 at all until very recently, but I don't really have a platform to use it on. I don't have any recent AMD stuff, and I don't have a Z490 yet. But yeah, this is a 4266 Galax kit. Show you the front as well. Supports Intel Core. Wow. So Hall of Fame Extreme, OC Lab Edition, 4266. I think, let's see, what's the XMP on this? 1939 at 1.4 volts. So yeah, if and when I get a Z490 and I'll use this. I don't have an Apex 11, so I can't do regular coffee A2. Still need to use A0 for that. So that's my kit. I might be getting another kit though. We'll see. Finding better bins. Yeah, but memory binning takes a lot of time. Some people don't want to spend that time. I hate memory binning myself. I don't mind binning CPUs. They're the easiest. GPUs are a little bit harder to bin because you have to bin for memory, and it's a little bit harder to control the voltage aspect of it and stuff because different vendors have different stock voltages. So if you don't have voltage control on a GPU and you're trying to bin a lot of GPUs, how are you going to do that? You have to get voltage control first in order to be able to even out that. But GPUs are still okay. Memory binning is the hardest, I think, because you have to bin single channel, but then maybe dual channel is a different story, and you've got all of these minor voltages to worry about and stuff. It's not easy. What cooler is it? This is a Hyper 212 Evo Cooler Master, but it's been used and abused, and I don't mount it. You're supposed to put sort of a clamping kind of mount through here, but I just sit it on top. Okay. Crucial 4400. 16 gigabyte. Yeah, not really relevant for benching though. 3 kits that can do 4800 ambient. Yeah, let's see what this kit will do. Yeah, I do. I think I have a Strix RX 480 with Samsung. Let's just quickly have a look. How does 580 beat it? You can just cross flash them. I don't really get that point. I mean, that's not allowed for hardware bot purposes, but what I'm trying to say is that the hardware is basically identical. So this was my GPU Pi sub. Yeah, I have Samsung. Asus. No dice for Galax. So does Galax not export to the US anymore? Anyway, I just bought it locally used. So the nice thing with this kit too is that it's got some warranty stickers on the side, but you can just screw off the heat spreader, so that's really nice. I'm sort of tempted to just do it now, to be honest. No, that's not the right size. Anyway, and I have a Galax pot as well. So that's going to come in relevant. They're going to be relevant for upcoming DDR4 since everyone's running it cold now. So this is sort of your traditional RAM pot, which is nice on hypers and PSC where you're running one temperature for a lot of the time, but it's a bit too shallow to Zorch it. So that's the EK pot. I think you can even still get that from EK. I could be wrong. But what the Galax and I think the Bits Power pot is similar. What those memory pots do differently is they are much deeper, so you can Zorch them. So for B-Die, I haven't run B-Die cold, but from what I hear is every stick is different, every kit is different. So that's the Galax kit, or pot rather. So there's spreaders. I'm probably going to use Bartex spreaders instead, but it's much deeper. So maybe I need to do a side-by-side comparison to give you a clue. But for DDR4, this is the way to go because I've tried Zorching this pot before, and it's not. You need a heat gun or something because you're just gonna burn your CPU pot basically. So here's your side-by-side comparison. If you take off the bottom bit, that's just solid copper essentially. It's almost twice as tall, so you can Zorch in there. The structure, there's not much difference, pretty much the same thing. Also a nice location for the probe up here. I think the EK actually doesn't even have one. Yeah, but anyway. Right. H411R, okay. Hex channel. Yeah, Hex channel. 580s clock better, but do they though? Do they? I mean, I did 2 gigahertz on this card, so maybe in general or on average they clock better, but I think if I really put a lot of effort into it, this card would clock as well as all the other cards. So Galax doesn't ship to North America. That's yeah, I just need to eventually find the time to put memory heaters on there, or maybe just a socket heater will work, because from what I understand, there was a recent Orgs 580 competition and people were complaining about both the IMC and the memory ICs having bugs, so I don't really want to deal with that. Running GPU on cold takes a lot of LN2 and I don't want to have to face all that crap, so that's why I just did the GPU Pi run. On average they do, but what I'm trying to say is my card would get more points. Anyway, all right, so I've caught up on the chat. Thanks all for coming today in spite of the internet issues. Maybe next time there'll be an LN2 stream. I haven't really decided, but it won't be on Wednesday. I think maybe the week after I'll be back to a Wednesday stream. All right, thanks all for coming, and you know, like, share, and subscribe and all that good stuff. Until next time.